Today's lesson is going to be about threats and vulnerabilities. This is a pretty big deal in the security world and something that we're going to spend a little bit of time on. A whole bunch of different types of malware or malicious software that's out there. 69.99% is Trojan horses. The others make up the rest of the pie chart. So really the word malware is a catch-all phrase for just about everything in the virus world. If you can't figure out what it is, then malware is the moniker for it. Viruses oftentimes get into specific files inside the operating system. Those include the executables, master boot records, as well as other things. And if they get inside, it's very, very difficult for them to be removed. They can also be delivered via the macro viruses in Microsoft Word applications and cross-site scripting via websites. Another cool thing that we've been seeing are encoded PDFs that, using something like Metasploit, can be deliver a payload, and if somebody clicks on it, then a remote session gets entered back from their machine to the attacker's machine. One of the nastiest worms that we've seen in the recent years is this Conficker. Worm is self-replicating, and it attacks any security vulnerabilities on the target computers. It doesn't need a host, which is the distinction between it and a virus. So all it needs is a bandwidth and some connections. It does not need a host. Here's a timeline of some of the different viruses and worms dating back from 2007 till 2011. You've probably seen a bunch of different things out on the market whenever you're browsing. Things like adware, where maybe you try to see the information that gets passed on via marketers. Google's on the side advertises specifically to emails that you've sent. Yahoo does it. Ask.com toolbar. Facebook does it. A whole bunch of adware. If this gets installed on your machine, oftentimes there's a little program that's running in the background that is recording something and sending it out to a particular marketer. So spyware is very similar, except it is secretly installed. Things like keyloggers and other things that may be hidden from you innocuously. And what they do is they collect these small pieces of information without your knowledge, and that's the distinction here, without your knowledge, and then send it off to a particular person that's interested in that information. Trojan Horse is something that's pretty interesting. If you go back and think about the old Troy, where the wooden horse was delivered, and essentially it masquerades an attack. You can try to encode specific viruses to give them a different look and feel, and essentially it gets past any type of antivirus or malware detector, intrusion detection system, with the intent that it's going to do some sort of harm after it gets inside the system. One of the examples here is the beast down in the bottom right hand corner. Rootkits are very nasty. There's been a few evidence of that with the Sony BMG case and the Greek wiretapping case back in 2005. You should be able to go out and do a little bit of research on your own on both of those. But essentially, if these get installed in the root level or at the kernel level of your system, these boogers are very, very difficult to get installed. Not even a complete machine wipe can get these removed from your machine. So keep that in mind. There are some detectors out there that, like this Rootkit revealer, it can show the hidden files. Oftentimes these rootkits hide from any antivirus by just changing themselves slightly to circumvent any type of detection. If you think about the old movie back in the 80s of Matthew Broderick with War Games, There was a machine in there that was called the Whopper. It always asked, can we play a game? And the game that it wanted to play was global thermal nuclear war, or maybe just a nice game of chess. Well, the maker of that machine actually had this thing that we call a backdoor, which is what most developers do in order to try to do some sort of administration and remain undetected. Well, the same sense in the hacking world. The hackers will try to get you to install something on your machine so they can get a covert way to access your machine and remain undetected. Things like logic bombs oftentimes get put into applications, and it's very interesting. If you've seen the movie Office Space over here on the right, there's an example of that in there where they just do a simple type of attack, and the attack will over time try to accumulate a large amount of money. In this particular case, some sort of programmer could create a program that always makes sure that his name appears on the payroll. So if he gets fired, he still will get a paycheck. Botnets is the next topic we'll talk about, and specifically for any type of security exam that you'll take, you'll need to know this right here. It has a master-slave architecture, and these botnets typically are made up of what's called the zombies. The zombies are machines that have an agent that typically will run on them, and the agent could be commanded at will by the master to do whatever it wants. In most cases, they are used to do distributed denial of service attacks, and that's the case with this particular diagram. Man-in-the-middle attack typically happens whenever somebody is able to intercept the data and just maybe in a passive way listen, or maybe intercept the data and then alter it. And if you were to use something like a proxy, or maybe Burp Suite, if you're looking for a tool out there, Burp Suite is a good example of a man-in-the-middle type of attack, where if you're able to be in line between somebody and the internet, you can see the traffic, manipulate the traffic, and give a new response back to them based off of whatever information you have that was submitted. Talked a little bit about these before, the distributed denial of service attacks and the denial of service attacks. One of the examples that I always give in class is the WikiLeaks website being hacked, or at least being overwhelmed when Julian Assange wanted to put the information, leak the information about the U.S. government out there. Oftentimes the denial of service attacks come whenever somebody wants to try to just overwhelm a system. And you can do that by having the botnet that we talked about a few slides ago, and those zombies that are controlled with a little agent that runs on them. Replay attack is pretty interesting. There's a few different types of tools that are out there right now. One that I can think of off the top of my head is Scapy, that can replay or craft packets, and another is TCP replay, which if you were to go in and capture Wireshark PCAP data, you could just go through and actually replay that Wireshark PCAP data. So what does that have in it? Well, I mean, if you're able to capture the network traffic, you can get usernames, passwords, and in this particular case, if there is no temporal or time-based in the authentication components of those particular websites, if somebody was to capture that packet data and then replay it, there's a good chance that if there was no session key or time-based available, then they would be able to just replay the message and be able to get into your secure web page. Smurf attack is kind of interesting. Essentially, somebody spoofs an IP address and then sends out an all points bulletin to an ICMP broadcast address, which is the .255 node on the network. Since it's being spoofed, the victim is essentially overwhelmed by everyone replying back to it. So the attacker, again, spoofs the victim's IP address, sends out a broadcast address to everybody and their grandma on the network, and then the victim is overwhelmed because all those machines reply back to that particular victim. So a lot of different key terms to memorize whenever we go through and do this. You need to be able to memorize these: spoofing, spam, spim, vishing, spear phishing, farming. I would also say that you need to know whaling as well as the rest of these, and even a simple note card would be good for memorizing these. A few different types of attacks that are typically shown on the exams: things like privilege escalation, malicious insider threat, DNS poisoning, ARP poisoning, transitive access, and client-side attacks. These are all things that you need to be aware of when taking any of these certification exams. Of course, the phishing is something that's oftentimes shown in the media, where you can try to send an email that looks and smells and feels like it's a trusted person, like your bank, let's say. And they're crafted rather cleverly, and typically they have the actual logo of the company that is going to be tried to be spoofed. And in this particular case, to try to get somebody to click on a link to go out to malicious website. A Christmas attack is typically whenever you have the send, fin, urgent, and push all set to a 1. And this is something you need to know for the exam. So oftentimes in the marketplace you hear the packet was lit up like a Christmas tree. It means that all the different particular Boolean values that could be set on that packet were set. One of my favorite movies that I like to watch is this Fletch over on the right hand side. He's very creative, Chevy Chase, with his types of impersonations. And sometimes in the network security world we'll do that to try to get people to give us their usernames and passwords over the phones. A bunch of different types of social engineering are shown on the left hand side. So shoulder surfing, dumpster diving, tailgating, impersonation, hoaxes. You need to know all of these for the exam that you're about to take. The wireless access attacks are very interesting. A bunch of different things are shown up here on the left-hand side. As far as rogue access points, you'll see a question or two on your exam about these, where if somebody can stand up an access point and maybe leave it open, and if they do, then you connect to that particular access point. They can see all of your traffic going through it. So if you were to log on to Facebook or your bank account, chances are really good that they would be able to see your session information as it's going back and forth. War driving is something that's very interesting, and if you have a chance, you may want to go out to wiggle.net, wigle.net, and just check out all the different wireless access points that are shown out in the world right now. Wiggle.net really displays geographically very good way to show that. So that's it for now. If you have any questions, contact me at ben.c.mcgee@gmail.com. Thank you.